Is Kyle still here?
Sir,
Ready, Kyle. Sorry. Sorry about that. All right,
no
let's
worries.
call it to order 5:51. We are going to receive a presentation of the town of Stafford fiscal year 2025 financial statements by Kyle Connors, the managing director of CPA, which is a town to defend law firm. Take it away, Kyle.
Great, thank you.
1 second. We do have a quorum, but we have room to see one. Everyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a
Make a
motion.
motion to seat Donna.
Second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Donna, you're seated. You can stay there or come up here, your choice.
Can I stay here for now and then I'll move up? It's.
That's fine, you can stay there. Well, actually, Rob will probably take.
Rob will be
seat
back
there.
on then.
All right, good. All right, Kyle, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I'm just gonna share my screen here and pull up our slide deck. All right, let me know if you can see this all right.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So thanks first of all for accommodating me remotely. I generally prefer to do these in person, but tough week on my schedule, so certainly appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and walk through the town's 2025 financial statement and audit results. And certainly as we go through, feel free to ask any questions that you might have or save them for the end, and I can do my best to answer them then as well. Certainly want to say thank you to everyone involved. We did a lot of work in a short amount of time to be able to get this audit issued. Um, Yana and the folks at the town, just great people to work with. Sherry kind of took on a lot at the Board of Ed, kind of walking into everything, and she was very responsive. And so, we don't get to issue an audit without everyone kind of doing their part. So just a quick shout out to those folks for their help. The town's general fund in 2025 fund balance increased by $1 million, leaving the town with unassigned fund balance of 5.2 million. Typically, the best indicator of measuring whether or not that's healthy is to compare it to your operating budget. So that 5.2 million represents about 11% of your operating budget. When we look at a municipality, obviously the size of the community has an impact, but usually a range of 8 to 16% is a relatively healthy place for a community to be. As you can see, over the last 9 years, the town's fund balance has relatively steadily increased, especially these last 4 years here. The dark green portion of this fund balance represents what's considered unassigned and available for future use. The lighter green is funds that are assigned or non-spendable. And we've talked about this in the past, but I still think it's important to touch on this light green portion starting in 2022 predominantly represents the utility fund that's sitting in a deficit that we can get into later in the presentation. So, again, looking at the town's general fund from a budget to actual standpoint, revenues were over budget in fiscal 25 by 304,000. The largest revenue source being property taxes was 203,000 below what was anticipated, which is a little over 0.5%. So, a small amount percentage-wise. Again, when we're looking at the health of a community that is reliant on property taxes, we consider anything 97% or higher to be a very healthy place to be. And the town's tax collection of its 2023 grand list in fiscal 25 was 97.6%. Overall, intergovernmental revenue was under budget by 205,000. This is largely due to the state of Connecticut motor vehicle reimbursement being less than what was anticipated. The interest income was over budget by 535,000, and ambulance budgetary revenue was over budget by 153,000. The opposite side of the P&L, expenditures were $727,000 less than what was budgeted. So you underspent on the expenditure side. There was a favorable result, basically splitting that into more or less into three different areas that had the most significant savings: employee benefits of 149,000, general highway of 454,000, and transfer station of 106,000. I'll get into the internal service fund, but as part of its budgetary expenditures, the board's line did transfer $500,000 to its internal service fund to cover the operational deficit that we've got laid out a little bit more detailed in a future slide. But at the end of the year, the BOE had $74,000 left unspent of its 2025 budget. That 74,000 was included as an assigned fund balance, so it's not part of your unassigned at year end. And the town did spend $1.1 million in ARPA funding in fiscal 25. I would just note too, I know in my discussions with Yana and Bill, the town has until December 31, 2026, just to spend any remaining ARPA funds. So getting back to this internal service fund, the the town presents an internal service fund, which represents the Board of Education self-insurance. And so I think it's important to note that that fund actually ran an operating loss of about $454,000 in fiscal 25, which means your claims and your admin expenses that you're paying out exceeded the premiums that you're charging. So probably something you want to look into for future years, maybe consider a higher working rate. That fund would have ran into a pretty good sized deficit had it not been for the $500,000 transfer out of the Board of Ed's appropriation in 2025. And same for the cafeteria fund to a lesser degree. I had an operating deficit prior to transfers in of $227,000, which meant that your overall costs for your school lunch fund are higher than what you're getting reimbursed from the government, and what you're charging for lunches. The always elephant in the room, the town's utility fund had a deficit fund balance at year end of $2 million. I guess an increase or an improvement from the prior year of 2.2 million. That fund generated $259,000 in revenue, but had $1.5 million worth of expenses. And so, again, as in the prior year, that fund was subsidized by the general fund. That operational deficit was covered with a $1.6 million transfer. The town has a sewer user fund. That fund had operating revenues in fiscal 25 of 2.1 million, which was about $200,000 in the prior year, and had operating expenses of 1.8 million, which was up about 100,000 from the prior year. Overall, that fund had operating income of 297,000 in 2025. The town does administer a private pension plan for its members. Sorry, for the folks who are eligible for the plan that work for the town. That plan was funded at just a tick under 64% with a net liability of 11.7 million. Just to provide some context, over the last couple of years, it was funded at 60% in 2024, almost 57% in 2023. So it's been trending in the right direction. Typically, when we're looking at a pension plan, anything that's funded under 60% is what's called critical. So you're above that mark, which is good. Couple reasons for it. You've been making your annual required contribution that your actuary is recommending every year, which is helping fund that liability. And also we've had some good market economy, some good passive income. There was $2.2 million in passive income in 2025. The Board of Ed also administers what's called an other post-employment benefit plan. So it's benefits outside of pension. Typically, it's healthcare. That plan had a liability of 2.4 million at year end, and the town treats it as a pay-as-you-go plan, but that's for a reason. The plan really is a bridge between when an employee is eligible to retire on the Board of Ed side, and then this provides healthcare insurance until they turn 65, in which case they're required to go on to Medicare. So it's not a healthcare for life plan. It's a bridge plan between when the employee is eligible to retire and when they reach Medicare age. But so that 2.4 million, just to provide some context, is down about 1.5 million from 2018. It's steadily decreased over the years. Recommendations. We've included this recommendation the last couple of audits. The Board of Ed is well aware. I spoke with the folks over there. They brought in another consulting firm to help them develop formal policies and procedures that will, be documented in a manner that will be able to, hopefully remove this comment in the future. But the recommendation was for them to maintain formal documentations of processes and procedures, so that if there's turnover in their finance department, they have a documented method for how they accomplish their internal controls over payroll, over disbursements, grant drawdowns, those sorts of areas. So I know that's something that they're working on. And then, as we always recommend, just continue cybersecurity training annually. Getting more and more ransomware malware. We're seeing that all over the place. And so perform vulnerability testing if you haven't, and just continue cybersecurity training. Portion of our audit is not, we're looking at the financial statements. We're looking at the town and the Board of Ed's internal controls over financial reporting, but we're also required to test a certain amount of federal and state programs, grant programs. So we'll test them for allowability. We'll test them of allowability of the costs that they're allocating those grant funds to. Procurement, did they select vendors based off of appropriate methods? Are they reporting their expenditures to the state and federal government timely and accurately? And so we've got 4 programs in 2025, ARPA being the largest. And I think we're probably about 75% done with our single audit at this point, with no non-compliance to bring to your attention at this point. So happy to note that. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board? No, I imagine the fuck will later though.
Apologies, I didn't catch that last part.
Yeah, sorry. No, doesn't look like there's any questions from the board. Bill or Scott, would you have anything you'd like to ask Carl?
If I could, Kyle, sorry, if I could get a copy of the slide presentation, Kyle, that'd be helpful.
I can forward it to you.
You would?
Yep.
Already taken care of. Thank you.
Perfect.
Good. So in this part of the process, these are your findings, but like you said, you have the single audit, the testing of funds. So at what point is our audit complete?
So it would be complete upon the issuance of the single audit report as far as the state is concerned. So the financial statements, that's the larger portion. That's what your bond ratings and your banks and your creditors are looking for. The state just wants the full package. So I expect that'll wrap up over the next week or two.
So this month, during February, it should be all done.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay. So our goal this year was to have the audit done by December 31st. So obviously we had either some weaknesses in there or whatever. Moving to next year, what can you recommend that we do differently? Where do we need to get stronger? Where are the weaknesses in the process that could help us actually get the audit done by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think weaknesses is a bold word. I don't think that there was like specific weaknesses that we found that that would have been reportable findings. It's just timeline. I think we got trial balances right around Thanksgiving. So between the Thanksgiving holiday and the the Christmas break, it's hard to it's hard to get something issued in just a short amount of time. So maybe the weakness, so to speak, is just getting us the support and the trial balances earlier every year. Um, but that comes with challenges too. You know, you I'm assuming the finance department could have given me a trial balance back in September 15th, but um, it probably wouldn't have been as clean as when I got it either. So it's just timeline of when we receive everything.
So what would be the timeline to get things to you in order to have an audit come out on by the end of the year?
Yeah, typically we have the most success when we're able to get trial balances and all the support for the audit by mid-October.
Mid-October? So in the case, like you said, the finance department might be able to give you a trial balance, but it might not have been perfectly accurate. So when that happens, does that slow down the process? Say if that happened and there had to be changes to it later, does that still allow the process to speed up? Or does it slow it down more when additional information is added?
So it really depends if it's a change or two, if it's an accrual along the way, an audit adjustment along the way. I would say it wouldn't slow us down, but if it requires us to reperform audit procedures because something wasn't reconciled, it probably does more harm than good.
So overall, mid-October. The left there, you. He's in. He's in? Yeah. So, Kyle, so mid-October would be our date to say, okay, fine, there's a good chance we get the audit done by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot.
Okay. Get on that, Bill.
But again, I don't want to take away or diminish any of the efforts that we made or that the town and board made it. Certainly being here in February is better than where we were a couple years ago, which was well behind the 8 ball.
Without a doubt.
Has our bond rating changed with the increase in our general fund?
I don't know off the top of my head. I have to defer to Yana or Bill.
It's more dependent upon the Unistat report. So the short answer is no.
Any other questions?
Question.
Sure.
How many towns and municipalities that you have filed on time?
What percentage of them file on time?
Yeah.
Well, on time is kind of so the state of Connecticut has a self-imposed December 31st deadline. Other communities or other states like Massachusetts defer to the federal deadline of March 31st. So, I always find it interesting when I get a community in Connecticut that feels like they, maybe weren't as timely as they could be by issuing in January or February. And, you go to cross state borders and you got communities that file in March that feel like they got everything in on time. But, as far as the percentage of communities that issue by 12/31, it's probably on the lower end. There's a lot of work that goes into these audits. It's not like it's a little nonprofit where you can kind of close the books 15 days after year end. 6 months after year end is probably a tighter window than a lot of people realize. I don't know if I did a good enough job answering your question, but
It looks like the state of Connecticut might want to reconsider that deadline.
yeah, I wish they would. I think their thought process though is if they if they remove that and they give the state an extra 3 months, that all the communities will just wait 3 months to get started longer than they want to. And then I think the other part of it too is that hoping to get the audit done closer to the end of January will relieve some pressure when it's time for these communities to start putting their budgets together, so they're not doing the audit and the budget at the same time.
Any other questions? Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate your patience with us tonight and Doing it remotely is not a big deal, so we just appreciate you being informed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, is there any public comment? Any comment? Let's hear a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Good, all in favor? Aye.
Like,
Everybody's got 15 minutes to go though.
John, I need your